Hey everybody, welcome to this video. This is Shane Smolian from Wolf Trader Futures, and I'm going to talk to you today about how to verify your data. So this program that we're using, Air Software, shows you some very nice astro analysis of the markets. It tells you how did the market actually behave in the past with these events. That much I can tell you is true, but we really don't know that it's true into the future. And this is a weakness of this program, a weakness of most programs. In fact, it's a weakness of most psychoanalysts. Psychoanalysts, not psychoanalysis, but psychoanalysts, people who analyze cycles. They have weaknesses, just like any other system has its strengths and has its weaknesses. And the weakness of psychoanalysis is two major problems. One of the major problems is psychoanalysts, I can say that fast 10 times, people who analyze cycles assume that everything you need to know about the future is determined by the past. And we know that's not true, especially like with the Fed being involved, especially when we get into advanced testing algorithms. That's not always the case. And the second thing they assume is, well, I'm going to take the most profitable one from the past, and that's the one that's going to be the most profitable into the future. And this is a big, big mistake because a lot of times that's not true either. Sometimes you'll see, let's say you have a cycle and they have different strengths of cycle, right? And so one cycle will test, in the past, it makes these great gains and it's showing you that it makes, let's say that it makes 85% across a given period, right? And it makes 85% into the past. And then there's another cycle that makes 67% into the past. And this might be way, way down on your list of outcomes, right? And so most people are going to take, oh, this is the most profitable. Let's use this one into the future. Well, what can happen is the one that made 85%, when it gets into the future, it can start to tank, and the one that made the 67% can just keep going forward into the future. So, long story short, both of these things are problems. Assuming that everything we need to know about the future is from the past, and then assuming that the most profitable one is the one we should use for the future. Not the case. And so we're going to show you here how to analyze this. And it's nice that I showed you these graphs. I mean, they're very interesting. This was the first one we looked at, which was, well, this is actually the second one. This was the first one we looked at, which was the Zodiac Signs, the S&P by Zodiac Signs. And it's a very nice graph, very colorful, very well done in terms of the graphics. But how do we know that it's true? Like that's the thing you have to understand. And so I'm going to add this over to what's called a composite box here. I'm going to add this next one here, which is going to be the sun versus the moon. We talked about this yesterday. So we have to ask ourselves, well, how do we know that it's true? How do we know that it's true? And so what we'll see here is that I have over here, let me delete some of these. I have over here, well, first of all, I have the moon cycle here, this is a different module. This is going to put it against the price. But I have the moon module here, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. This is S&P, and you can see it tells you the turning points, and you can actually pick like how steep you want the turning points to be. I'm going to leave it at 30%, which means it's going to pick the bigger, it's going to have a 30% move to pick a turn. You can go more resolution with that, but for now, we're just trying to look for the big peaks and the troughs, and this is going to be the moon. You can see here, there's the sell points here, there's the buy points down here, sell point here, buy point down here, and that's for the moon by the signs. Next one's going to be for the sun moon. This is going to be the one that's the new moon and the full moon and all that. Great. So we got two. We've created a problem. I purposely created this problem for you in the last video, and you didn't even realize it because now you have two outcomes. Which one do you pick? And so this is where this is also why I developed the quad lunar cycle, so I don't have to deal with this stuff. But anyway, that's another story for another time. It'll make that quad lunar cycle will make sense as we get through this. But all right, so which one do we use? So I could use the moon, which is the zodiac signs here, or I can use the sun moon here, which is the aspects. Now, one thing you could do is you could just merge the two cycles. I can click both of these, and voila, we have a composite cycle, and we can just say, "Oh, that's good enough for me. I'm just going to take the composite cycle and walk away." And it's like, wait a second, that's not necessarily the best thing to do. So it's not necessarily advised. We need to be verifying data, and we're going to do that. So what I'm going to do here is the first thing I'm going to do is what a typical person would do. They would be like, "Oh, I'm just going to look in the past, and the past is going to tell me about the future." Like, it's like, no, that's not true. But let's, I'm going to prove it to you. Okay, so let's just look at this. And so let's look at the past. And again, this is like the biggest weakness of all psychoanalysts. That psychoanalysts, people who analyze cycles. I need to come up with a different term for that. But anyway, when you look into the past, you're like, I'm going to look at this, and we're going to find out which one's better. So let's look at each one separately. Okay, so I'm going to pick the dollar sign up here. We're going to look at, I'm going to select this area. So we're going to say, I want you to select this area, and I want you to show me the buy sell points for this area, and I want you to tell me the money for, we're going to look at first the moon. So by the way, there is something here called a learning curve point, and you can see that I purposely made it to the present. Okay, it's including all this data. We're going to start walking this back, and I'm going to start looking how it went into the future. This is just telling us the past. Okay, so if I look at the moon, right, 30% swing, it says that it does 173% annual gains. I don't know if you can see that up there, but that's what it says. Right up into here, it says 173% gain for that total period from 2009 to present. So I'm going to go over to my little spreadsheet here that I made, and we're going to start to write this stuff down. So in sample, this is actually 16 years, but I'll put it as 15. I put it as 15, but 16, 6, 6, and then 16, and then 10, 10. Okay, what does all this mean? Well, we're looking at 16 years of in-sample, roughly 16 years of in-sample, and there's no out-of-sample data. I just went to the present. I'm just looking in the past. This is what most people do. They look at the past and go, oh, the past is going to tell us the future. Not even close to being true. Okay, so the lunar signs, I'm going to put this down that this one does 173%. This is just, I mean, guys, this is like basic verification. This is not a sophisticated, I'm doing this by hand. I have other software that does this automatically, but I'm trying to show you how how we're going to verify this. This is 173%. So that's the moon. 173%. Now lunar sun, let's look at this. Lunar sun, I'm just going to look at this one alone. And look at this. I don't know if you can see this. It does 443%. Wow, that's really good, right? So it does 443%. So right off the bat, you might just say, well, it's obvious the clear winner is the lunar sun, right? So some people might say that. Well, that's not necessarily true because we're just looking in the past. So I need to at least give myself a couple of looks into the future. And by the way, this is very crude because we're just taking the top percent too. This is not how you do a good verification to the future, but this is all that the software can do. It just tells me the best one because people assume that the best one in the past is the best one in the future. Not true, but I'm going to show you this. So the first thing I'm going to do, there's something called a learning curve here. So I'm going to close this. And we have this learning curve here. So what I want to do is I want to dial this back, and I want to look at from 2020 to the present. So what am I doing? I'm actually taking a sample here from 2009 to 2020, and then I'm going to stop it here, and I'm going to see how did it do into the future. Are you guys with me still? I'm going to see how it did into the future. I'm only going to test up to this point. This is our first step of like verification. Again, this is a very crude way to do it. We're doing it by hand, but at least we're putting in some due diligence here to make sure that this thing can go into the future. So I'm going to go back here, and now I'm going to have my composite, and we're going to look at, I'm going to show you this is going to look very different. So now we're going to look at the moon. So the moon looks different now, right? It's not the same. It's a little bit different. Before, you see how it's similar, but it's a little bit different. So I'm going to add that to my composite, and I'm going to go up here to the sun moon, and that one's going to look a little different too. You see it's different, right? And I'm going to add that one too. Okay, and then I'm going to look at these again, and we're going to do the same thing But we're going to look at how did it do just during that period. You see here where it ends, this is the learning period, and this is what we call the out of sample. So when we're looking at this, this is where we have to put on our thinking caps, right? We can't just say, oh, the machine said it's true and I did it and that's what it is. No, you have to think about what we're doing here. So this is called out of sample. I'll just put out of sample. But I just like to press the button. No, we have to think about, even when you press the button, I'm still skeptical. I go back and test all this stuff. So in samples here, so out of sample. So we're looking, how did this do into the future? So this is the future. Right, so we did 11 here in sample, and we did 5 out of sample, right? Okay. So how did this thing do? Let's test it. Let's test it and let's see how it did. So I'm going to look at the moon first, and we're going to select this period here. I'm only going to select from this period here out to here. I just want to know how it did out into here. Now, if I go past the date of this, doesn't matter because there's no trades. Doesn't matter. But I want to start from there. So it's going to tell me, here's how it did. Okay, so I can see up here, it's going to tell me it did 36.38%. Let's say 36%. So the moon did 36%. So lunar cycle, lunar signs, the moon did 36%. 36%. And then I'm going to look at the lunar sun. So we did 10 years in sample, roughly, or we did 11. I guess we did 10. We did 10. We did 09 to, we did 11. Sorry, we did 11 and 5, and we did 5 and 11. Sorry. Yeah. Okay, so let's go back here now. Now let's look at the sun moon. Okay, in that same period, how did that do? That one, I don't know if you can see it up here. It says 92.97. So let's call that 93%. So we're looking at 93% here. So that's a good sign because that means that it's pretty consistent so far, right? So that means that what this means is that the lunar cycle, if we look at the ratios here, it's almost it's more than double. It's almost 3 to 1. The lunar is better. So 93% here. And it's kind of maintaining that ratio. It's like this is almost 3 to 1 here. So even when we stopped testing here at 2020, it kept going for the next 5 years. That's a good sign. So I'm actually starting to poke some holes into this. I'm saying, okay, is this true? What did it do in the back test here? Okay, it did this. Now, what did it do here in this first walk forward? It did this. And this is what we call an anchored walk forward. This is kind of like a walk forward. We're manually doing this, but I don't like using max profit to begin with. I'm just showing you this is just how you would, at least we can make an argument. We could show somebody and say, okay, look, at least it did this. Instead of just saying, well, look at that pretty graph. Let me use that. Like, that's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. So this is called anchored. So what's happening here is it's always starting from the same point. And like this case is 2009, it's going all the way out into 2020. So this is called anchored. Oh, sorry, it's here. So this is called anchored. So it's going from here to here. Okay, and again, the anchored portion, this is the end sample. We'll call this the past. And the out of sample, I'll just put out of sample here is the future. This is the future. All right, so this is the future. We stopped testing here, we stopped learning here, and we said, what would it have done into the future? And so that's what we just did. So the good news is that this is pretty consistent from what we've seen, and it's anchored. I don't like using anchored. I would rather be able to test variable slices all along, but okay, so that's what we're going to do. So we can see here that we have our, first of all, we have, and if we can actually take this and we can get a ratio. So we can say equals C1 divided by D, so I can get, why isn't that doing that? Equals, sorry, C2 divided by D2, and it gives me a ratio there. Um, so this is 39% of this one. We could do it the other way too. It just doesn't matter, but this is your ratio. Let me see if I can get this, get these numbers formatted a little better. Okay, so 0.39 is your ratio. And if we go down here, this is still like point. It's pretty good, right? That's crazy. Like it stayed pretty consistent, right? This is C2, D2, C3, D3. Is it really that good? Wow, that's good. So in this particular case, we're getting a nice ratio here, and it worked in the past. Let me give a few more decimals to this. This is well, anyway, we'll stick with this ratio here. So if this was 30, this would be point. Yeah, it's pretty consistent. So 0.39. So your ratio stayed the same even into the future. So that's good. But now let's really stress this thing. Let's really take this and let's only look. Let's go back and look a little further. So instead of doing that analysis, let's do another one here where we're going to go back and we're going to look even further. So what if this is 2009. So we're 16 years. So what if I went 1, 2, so I went 2010, 2011, 2012. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here, right? So this would be 2014. So I'm going to go back here. Okay, so this is the only part now that it sees into the past. Okay, and then I'm going to see how far did that project into the future. Okay, and we're using max profit. Okay, so now if we go to our graph, what we're going to be looking at is we're going to be looking at, in this particular case, we're going to be looking at the in-sample portion is only going to be 5 years, and out of sample is going to be 11 years, roughly. Okay, so that's a lot to ask of a system. Can you take 5 years and go forward into the future 11 years? But let's see how it does. So I'm going to go into the composite here, and we're going to go moon first here. Okay, I'm going to add this to the composite box, and this one looks really different, right? Well, actually, you're still getting that low there into the Scorpio Sagittarius, so that's still pretty good. And then, but it looks a little different onto the left side. And then we're going to go sun moon here. I'm going to add that one to the box. So here we go. So we got these two in the box again, and now I can actually test again, how did this thing do the 11 years out into the future, right? So this was our testing region into here. It's all going to make sense. I'm going to wrap this up for you guys. We're going to have a nice answer to this question when we're done with this, but this is how you have to do this. Always ask questions, right? So this is the past and this is the future. Ask a lot of questions. Let's make sure this thing is true. I mean, I'm showing you it's true, right? I mean, so it's going to only learn up to here, and then it's going to say, okay, using everything you learned here, what did it do into the future? Using max percentage, which again is questionable, but it's good enough for this example. All right, so let's take a look at this. So I'm going to first I'm going to look at the moon, and I'm going to say, let's just look at this into the future from this point on. So again, 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, and I want to go all the way out here into the future. So how did this one do? Okay, so it still made 109% total profit. I don't know if you can see that up there. It's right up here, but it's very small, so you can barely see it, but it says 109% up there. So this is 109%. Still not bad, right? If you just followed the lunar cycle, that's what it did. Pretty nutty, right? Now, this has practical constraints to it because there's no stops or targets in here, and there's no risk control and all that. That's where this stuff gets really challenging. But at least we can just say, if you just followed this, you made 109% into the future. That's pretty good, right? That's pretty good. And we're just doing the main peaks and valleys there. So we want to go here to lunar results, and we want to say, okay, the lunar did 109 in this particular case, 109%. Okay. So how did the sun, how did the moon with the sun do? Well, let's look here. All right. So again, I know this might seem tedious, but you have to do at least this. Like this is the bare minimum you have to do. This one does 49% into the future. So you can see here, this one does 49% into the future. 49. And so now your ratio really kind of drops here. Whoops. Sorry, 49%. So what this is telling you is that the sun lunar, see, so this is a very, very different result. Notice as you force this to go further out into the future, you see the results actually inverted here. So you see you had, before it was the lunar sun was the dominant, just using all the back tests. But now, if I only test 5 years and I go 11 years, you can see now that it flips. Like the lunar cycles are actually better in the long term. They made 109%. If you just followed the regular lunar sun cycle, you still made 49%. So what does all this mean? We got mixed results. We got mixed data. What do I think this means? I think what this means is the following. Ideally, we would have wanted to see this all be consistent all the way through. So you would have the lunar signs here versus lunar sun, and then you got this ratio. Lunar signs here versus lunar sun, you get this ratio. And we would have wanted to see that, but it actually flipped. So what this tells us is that probably the best result here is going to be the sun lunar, because the traditional back test did this, and we also made it run 5 years, so we included 11 years, and it still won. But if you would have, but there is a result here that shows some inconsistency in the sense that if you made it run 11 years, the lunar cycle was more consistent. So the lunar cycle, so what does this mean? This means that the lunar cycles are consistent across time, and this is true. We found this going all the way back through 1885. But when you do by sign, it's more consistent across the long haul. But on the short term, if you let it learn pretty close to the past, that the lunar sun is going to start to dominate. So because because the one that's near here, only 5 years out, was the lunar sun, we gave it 11 years to learn. Then it probably says that if you're including at least 11 years here and you're going up to the present, then you're going to use the lunar sun, which is the new moon and the full moon. If you have old data and you're just kind of like looking at something from like 20 years ago, what this means is that the zodiac one is probably going to be stronger. Okay, and you're never going to know this until you look into the results. We could have gotten very different results too. We could have gotten very consistent, or they could have flipped and flipped again. But to me, this tells me that, as long as you have enough data here, recent data, that the lunar sun is going to be the best one. And this is the back test, which we know is just kind of garbage bag. It's just something that people like to look at. But this is the real, to me, this is the results here. So if you're using data that, let's just say in this case, at least 11 years and pretty close to the past, use the sun lunar. If you have data that's old, that's like 20 years old, use the lunar cycles. Are you ever going to know this unless you test the data yourself? No, you're not. I mean, I could even go, if you want, I can even go a year out. We can do one more here and do a year. So for example, and I'm going to, now we're interpolating the data here, but I think this is going to be consistent here. Let's just do one more just to prove our point here, which I think this is going to be the winner if you use the data to the present, which when I gave you the example yesterday, it was including all of that. It was including since 2009. So I think it's pretty safe to say the lunar sun's going to be the best one. But let's just do another one. Let's do, this time we did 5 years here. Maybe we can do 2 years. So we'll go 13 and we'll go 2. Okay. So I feel pretty confident here, but I'm going to go in between these because these were pretty consistent. If I get another reading in here that's 0.39 around there, then I'm interpolating. It should work. We don't know until I test it, but that's going to confirm that this is going to be the one we're going to use. So let's get back to this. And this is really like a hand method to do this. But my God, guys, if you don't do this, like you're just guessing. Like I don't care what the back test says. I don't care what it says. It's garbage bag. Boy, this is almost we're getting near the end of this year. But anyway, so I'm gonna go like let's just pretend. So we'll go like 1, 2. I guess I'll go roughly to here. It's not exactly this, because we're almost at the end of 2025. But so I'll go 1, 2. Let's see, 1, 2, maybe a little bit out to here. That's roughly 2 years. Okay, so just for simplicity's sake, so I got 1, 2, yeah, roughly 2. I'm eyeballing this to get the whatever. But let's just go into here and let's just say, okay, that's 2 years and that's going to be, that's 13. Even though it's a little more than 13, whatever. It's just for our kind of get a rule of thumb here. So I'm going to test it there, okay? And now I'm going to go back into the composite. Boy, you never thought this could be so much fun to do lunar cycle analysis. But you got to do this, guys. You got to do this. Like, there's no way to know if what you're saying is true. And this has nothing to do with statistical analysis of the past and chi-square and t-score and z-score and Poisson distribution and whatever. That's all garbage bag too. You really have to be able to have a methodology that you use to go into the future. So we're going to add this the moon. This one should start to look very close to the one that we saw because we're taking almost the full range here. So we're going to take the moon, then we're going to take the moon sun here. Okay, so adding this. Okay, so they should both be over here. They are. Okay, so this is we're looking at roughly 13 and 2. What did I say 13 and 2? 13 and 14 and 2. Sorry, 14 and 2. I'm saying 13 because the other ones were 2010. That's why I keep looking. But whatever. It's just, you get the idea. We did 2 years here out of sample. So this should be 16. This should add up to 16. 16, 0, 16. 14 and 2 is 16. 11 and 5 is 16. 5 and 11 is 16. Okay. We can count. That's a good start. You should always be able to count. Okay, so lunar cycles here. So let's look at this. So if I just look at the lunar cycles here, and I'm going to look at just the one that was into the future here. Here's where it is here. All right, so buy sell points. And so this one does, hold on one second. This is the moon here, and this one does 1.7%. Okay. That's what it says, 1.7%. I don't know why that's rounding, but let's make it 2. We'll give it 2. This one here, the sun moon, you never know what you're going to get with this stuff, guys. That's why you got to keep testing these slices. This one does 25.68. Say 26. So again here, what we're seeing, this one's 0.07. So this one's really, so the lunar is only 39% of the, we can do the opposite ratio too if you want. If we want to do the winner, but whatever. The lunar is only 39% of the lunar by sign is 39% of the lunar by sun. In this case, the lunar by sign is only 7% of the lunar by sun. Ouchie, right? In this case here, the lunar is not 39%, and in this case, so this really strengthens the case here because it's showing us that the sun lunar for 2 years, it did the 26%, right? So it's telling us that the sun lunar in this case, this is the dominant one to use. If we're with this methodology, I'm going to be very specific here. With this methodology, what we're using, by using this anchored data point from the beginning, which again is kind of garbage bag, but I'm just doing this as an example. And we're using max profit, which is garbage bag too, but I'm using that as an example. At least it's telling us something here that this is the one to use. And this one here, it's telling us that if if we have data from far long ago, then like if we stopped learning 20 years ago, okay, it's telling us then to use the zodiac signs. But this is telling us if you can keep learning up to the present, okay, this even went out 5 years, it made 93%. In 2 years, this made 26%. The back test is 443, all of it. We know that's garbage bag, but I'll use that as a reference point. These are the two that matter. Now, this isn't garbage bag in of itself. It's garbage bag without the context of the rest of the data. So the context of the rest of this data says, yes, this was true because look here and look here. It's going out into the future. But if you go really, really far out into the future, this is not true. This is true, right? And so there's no way that you could know this unless you just put in the work and put in the numbers, guys. So I'm just trying to tell you this. So long story short, after we do all the analysis here, the answer to the question is which one do we choose? We choose the lunar sun one, which is the new moon, full moon, and the degrees, based off the one that I just showed you guys in the example with the S&P, because we used all of the 16 years in the back test, 16 plus years in the back test. So that's the answer to that question. I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. I know this was a little technical, but I think it's important to understand that we do need to verify data, and it's not just a button that we press on a computer and we accept it. No, we need to go back and say, prove to us that what you told us was true. And in this particular case, for this particular methodology, the sun lunar cycle is the best choice for profitability into the future. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. I hope everyone has a great day. Stay safe out there, and I will talk to you soon. Peace out.